Well, we made it to another Wednesday. And if you're keeping score at home, that's 3 in a row. Welcome to Next Point Wins. Down here in the turntable room, I'm your host, Matt Julian. I'd like to say hello to those listening live on WCCR Purdue and the TuneIn app. Also, those listening to the podcast on SoundCloud or YouTube. To contact the show, my Twitter is Matt_Gili. That's Gigli. And that's where you'll find today's poll question. Vote and retweet on that, and I'll give you the results periodically throughout the show. I'll also give you my take on the poll. The question for the day is, would you rather win a car, a yacht, a championship in any sport, or an island? That poll question relating to a topic I'll cover later in the show. Somebody who had their opportunity at one of those and had to pass it up. You can also email questions and comments to nextptwins@gmail.com. And I have to be honest with you guys, we may have some serious breaking news later in the show. I'm pretty excited about it. I've had my best guys in the back trying to get this story together they've been working around the clock. And, they're journalists first, people second. And hopefully we'll be able to figure out a way to break that story here in a minute. So we got a lot to cover today, so let's jump right in with the scoreboard.
Scoreboard, 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 scoreboard.
All right, in the NBA, it was Portland 126, Oklahoma City 121. Russell Westbrook had a career-high 58 points in that one, coming off of comments made by Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban saying that Russell Westbrook did not deserve the MVP in the league. Russ responds with a pretty big night, 58 points, career high. Also in the NBA, it was the Lakers 111, Dallas 122. The Mavericks get the win, and Dirk Nowitzki of the Dallas Mavericks scores his 30,000th point. He needed 20 points to do it. He got it in the second quarter. He's the third player to do it with one franchise, so congrats to Dirk. And, Dirk's one of those stories that I'm not sure we'll ever see another Dirk Nowitzki. And that's not even talking about how he plays on the floor. I'm not sure we'll find another guy who will start with a team and go this far with the same team without getting traded or free agency. We live in a different time now, a time where players try to cash in during that free agency time because contracts get bigger as the years go on. And pretty amazing that somebody like Dirk is willing to stay on the same team. He won a title with the Mavericks. He's the face of that franchise and a no-doubt Hall of Famer in my mind. In the NHL, it was the Blues 2, Wild 1. So the St. Louis Blues beat the division leaders at the moment. Also in the NHL, Detroit Red Wings 2 and the Maple Leafs 3. Nashville 3, Ducks 4, and that one was decided in a shootout. Canadians 2, Vancouver Canucks 1. In women's soccer, it was an international friendly between the USA and France. France beat them 3-0, so France was not very friendly in that friendly match. In the NCAA, it was Clemson 75, NC State 61 in the first round of the ACC tournament. Also in the ACC, it was Wake 92, Boston College 78. So Clemson, Wake, and then also Pittsburgh move on. Pittsburgh wins 61-59 over Georgia Tech. And the only team to punch their ticket, put on those shiny shoes, and go dancing last night, Mount St. Mary's. They are the winners, 71-61 over SFU, Mount St. Mary's of the Northeast Conference. So one of those compass conferences, as I like to call them. And congrats to Mount St. Mary's. It was a good game. They played really well. They were in control just about the entire game. Although it was a 10-point finish, it sure seemed farther apart than that. SFU really never got started. And to be honest, I watched a good 3/4 of the game. It took me until the last 12 minutes to finally figure out what SFU stood for. And I was paying close attention to this game. And it finally hit me, like I saw it on, I think it was like one of the cheerleaders' like megaphones. It said their full school name. And I was like, it kind of dawned on me like, oh, so that's who SFU is. You get that a lot with these small schools, these directional schools, the Compass Conference schools. They go by initials because their names are so long, and A lot of them, you either don't know where they're from or you don't know their real name. Over the weekend, what did I watch? This is good. So on Saturday and Sunday, I was flipping through college basketball games, watching a lot of the smaller conferences and still some of the Power 5 big boys finishing out their seasons. And it was one of those situations where like I was on like ESPN and I was trying to get to CBS, and by clicking through on my TV here at Purdue, by going from one to the next, I glanced over NBC Sports Network, and they had going rugby. And I don't know why, but I stopped and I started watching it, and it was some kind of tournament. I don't know. It kind of looked to me like it would be like a World Cup type of thing. It was all the different countries going against each other. It was called the USA Sevens Rugby Championship. I'm not even gonna act like I know what was at stake, but they were playing hard and they were good. I saw USA play. I saw Fiji. Fiji was really good. South Africa, they were phenomenal. They actually ended up winning the championship, to my knowledge. But you know how I see the NFL and they're not very creative. Like, they take things from other people and make it their own and make it bigger and better because that's the NFL, bigger and better. Well, I don't know if these are two things you can do, but the NFL needs to adopt 2 rugby rules. And it took me 3 seconds to figure it out. First off, if you're one of those people out there who are frustrated because your sport or your favorite sport to watch is too slow or takes too much time, catch a rugby match. I mean, these guys do it right. It's nonstop action. They play 2 quarters or halves. I honestly don't know. One of the two. They play 2 of those, and in that time period, it's nonstop and it's short. Like, the quarters / halves, don't know which, are very short because it's so like nonstop. And these guys are crazy. I mean, no doubt about it. These guys are a little messed up in the head. You can tell they're a little cuckoo just by the way they look. But like it's very impressive to watch them play because they play hard and they play nonstop. Anyways, 2 rules the NFL needs to adopt. 1, all referees during this Rugby Sevens tournament, they had mics on them, and their mics were constantly on. So like you'll be watching the action and you'll have your broadcasters who don't say as much as the NFL ones do, which some people might enjoy that. But you have your broadcasters who still get their takes in and call the game. But you're also hearing the referee, whether he's calling like a foul or telling somebody to get back or this and that. Like, I cannot believe NBC gets away with doing that with the kind of stuff that guys could say. And I watched total between Saturday and Sunday, bits and pieces, probably around an hour and a half of rugby, which is a crazy amount. I really need to get a hobby or something. But I just love watching sports, and this one caught my eye. Anyways, during that entire time, the referees and the players, not a single swear word. I could not believe it. Nobody slipped up. I don't know if they're just so tired because they're going back and forth so much that they don't have time to stop and talk smack or argue with the ref. I'm not really sure. But not once did they say something. And that mic was constantly on. So do I think the NFL could get away with that? No, probably not. But I think it would be really, really interesting to hear players and referees and coaches all interacting with each other because we all read lips, right? We all somehow, I mean, nowadays, especially on like Sunday Night Football or Monday Night Football, constantly there's a camera on everybody. Like, there's so many cameras at those games, nobody can hide. Everybody has a camera on them at every time. So we always catch the lip reading and the explicit words. So I guess you probably couldn't do this, but it would be really interesting. Second, it also has to do with the referee. He had like a GoPro on his head. And like when it was like a scrum, because it's impossible to see when it reminded me a lot of like I don't know, like games you used to, like dog piles in the backyard when you were a kid. Like you'd take somebody down, and instead of just letting them up, like 6 other kids are jumping on top. Because I don't know why that's so fun, but there's something about just like free falling, jumping as high as you can and free falling and landing on somebody's sternum. I don't know mentally where that comes from, but that's fun. Well, these guys, they're a bunch of kids. I mean, they go down and it's just a dog pile. So watching at home from the camera above, you can't see anything. So the referee has this GoPro on his head, and he like gets into the pile to see what's going on, and like you're watching it. So like you're in the pile too. That was cool. Cool angle. That's something that I definitely think that the NFL could do. And quote me on this. I wouldn't be surprised within the next 2 years we start putting cameras on the referees. Besides USA 7's rugby, I watched the best conference championship game I saw, and I'm a little biased because Fort Myers is close to my heart. I spring break vacation there for 10 years now, maybe? I don't know. I'm sure I'll get a text from my mom here real soon who is watching or listening, telling me how many years, but it's somewhere around there. Anyways, so Fort Myers is close to my heart, but Florida Gulf Coast, college campus there in Fort Myers, Florida. I watched their championship game, and I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I think Dunk City might be back, and it's kind of unfortunate for the players on that team because like that's a really high bar to try to reach up to. I mean, that team from is it 3 years? I'm trying to think. 3 years ago now, 3 or 4. That Dunk City squad that made just a tear through the tournament, beating a number 2 ranked Georgetown and winning another one. It was amazing, the similarities between the team I saw on Saturday. It might have been Sunday. It was on Sunday. The team I saw on Sunday and that team from 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, these kids, they play hard. Just watching them in warm-ups, it was awesome. You know, my first show, we talked about NBA Slam Dunk Contest. Throw it out. Just give me FGCU on a floor during warm-ups, throwing down dunks. Because these guys were, just living above the rim. Every time down, somebody was throwing one down. And it's an interesting style, and it's amazing that it works so well. And in order for that style to work, they have one point guard who, for a lot of the time, he's the only white guy on the floor, but he is money from three-pointer. And like it's a drive and kick kind of offense. They'll drive to the hoop, and they're either going to try to throw it down or lay it in, or they're going to kick it out to him for a three. And I don't know why it was so hard to stop. Now, given they did have some home court advantage as they played this championship game on their home floor, which I think is I don't know. I hear a lot from people that conference tournaments should never be on somebody's home floor. But when it comes to these smaller conferences, you have to let the favorite be on home floor. One, because, you're not going to sell out any big venue for a small conference tournament. Second, you truly want the best team from that conference making the tournament to represent your conference. So that little advantage, I think, is warranted. Plus, it gives you something to play for in the regular season. So, yeah, really good. Scary good. When you're filling out that bracket, it all depends on matchups, but there's always a team, at least one every year, who busts that bracket and makes it through the first day and sometimes even the first weekend. I would take a strong look at Florida Gulf Coast depending on what seed they get and who they play. And when you talk about bracket busters, like I said, like there's always one. There's like certain qualities that seem to always be with these teams that bust these brackets. One, senior leader. Every one of these teams has a senior leader who may not be the best player on the floor, but like when it's go time, crunch time, because a lot of times these small schools, they get out to a big lead in these games, and then the favorite starts slowly creeping back in. So you have to have somebody on your team on the floor who you can look at who's not scared, not phased, just pedal down, keep going. Look at Middle Tennessee State last year against Michigan State. They got out to like a 15-2 lead. And Michigan State slowly started creeping back in. But this guy named Giddy Potts, that brings me to my second point on a bracket buster team needing a tall forward who can play. Giddy Potts had me up out of my seat in my basement with one of my friends. We were watching, he's a friend of the show as well. We were watching a lot of action on that first 2 days of NCAA March Madness, and his name immediately caught my attention. It was like, I was like, I love Giddy Potts. Like, that's a great name. And then he started to ball out, and I was like, okay, this kid's for real. And every time Michigan State would hit a big shot, Giddy Potts would be driving to the lane with his big frame as a forward who looked like a guard, or maybe the other way around, but just making baskets. And also you need depth at the forward position because these teams are big. These Power 5 conference teams have big kids. That's why they're in Power 5 conferences. So you have to have enough depth on your front line to where when your starter, your leader, goes down with fouls, you have to have somebody who can come in and at least give you quality minutes for a long period of time. And that's something that I saw from Middle Tennessee State. And when you're filling out those brackets, keep that in mind. Also, while we're talking about brackets, as a show, I want to do a little bracket challenge. I want to see what kind of knowledge my listeners out there have. So, email me your brackets after they're announced on Sunday. You have until Thursday at 11. We'll cut it off Thursday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Send your bracket to nextptwins@gmail.com. I'll keep track, and throughout the tournament, as each Wednesday, I'll update on where we stand as far as listeners versus me. Also, when you fill in your bracket, please put your first name and where you're from, either city or state. That way I can give you guys some props and some credit on air if you're doing well. Yeah, so nextptwins@gmail.com, bracket challenge. It's you guys versus me. I'll fill one out too. We'll see how we do. Should be exciting. So get those brackets in. Let's go run down the list of teams who punched their tickets before we take a break here. In the Ohio Valley, it was Jacksonville State. All right, I want everybody, real quick, keep track at home how many of these teams you know what state they're from. Not like Jacksonville State. It's not Jacksonville. That's not the state. But even though they're Jackson, you get it. Keep track. I bet you know 3, if that. All right, here we go. Ohio Valley, Jacksonville State wins it. Atlantic Sun, Florida Gulf Coast University. I gave you that one. Missouri Valley, Wichita State. Big South, Winthrop. CAA, Wilmington. MAAC, Iona. Southern, ETSU. Summit League, South Dakota State. West Coast, Gonzaga. Horizon League, Northern Kentucky. And Northeast, Mount St. Mary's. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to Next Point Wins. Thanks for joining us. Remember to answer that poll question. It's at Matt_Gigli, Gigli, Twitter. The question is, would you rather win a yacht, a car, a championship of any sport, or an island? Right now, championship in any sport is in the lead at 44%. Island closely behind at 31%. And that brings me into our next segment. Got a lot of great feedback on this segment last week. We might get this trending. Let's try to get this trending on Twitter, on Sportsmanlike Conduct. It's going to sweep the nation. Let's do it.
And now, on Unsportsmanlike Conduct.
Personal foul number 15 on sportsmanlike conduct.
That's a horrible call!
I got quite a few for you guys today on Sportsmanlike Conduct. Feel free to send in some of your own as well throughout the week at nextptwins@gmail.com. Love to read them off. The first 3, all 3, are from the Combine, NFL Combine. I ended up watching quite a bit of it. First one, Leonard Fournette, running back from LSU. He weighed in. They all do like this weigh-in thing at the Combine to see where you're at weight-wise. He weighed in at 240, which for a running back, that's a little tall, little large for Leonard Fournette. And when asked about that weight, he claims that it was just water weight. He said at least 8 pounds was water weight, 5 to 8. All right. First off, how much water are you drinking? Like that's a ridiculous amount of water. Did you not know that you're getting weighed in? Because we all have those moments where you step on the scale, you look at the number, you're like, yeah, I had a bad night of eating, or man, that must be water weight. I wouldn't recommend saying that on a national scale to 32 owners and GMs who are thinking about giving you millions of dollars. And who's advising you to drink that much water before you weigh in? Like, how thirsty were you? So, Leonard Fournette, I'm going to give you 15 yards. That's unsportsmanlike conduct. We're going to take it back. You got to move on. Number 2, and this brings me to my poll question. So, John Ross, wide receiver at the draft, competing in the 40-yard dash. Now, all week we've been hearing about this Adidas promotion, I guess you would say, where they said that if somebody breaks the 40-yard dash record, Adidas would give them an island. Like, okay, that's pretty cool, right? You get an island if I break the 40-yard dash. That's awesome. Here's the catch. You have to be wearing Adidas cleats. So branding, okay, that makes sense. So all week people are talking about it. So the record was 4.22. Yeah, the record was 4.22. And John Ross gets up to the line. He takes off running, hauling down the line, breaks the record. He runs a 4.20. So he breaks the 40-yard dash record. Here's the catch. He wasn't wearing Adidas cleats. So Adidas is a huge winner here because Mr. Ross decided not to wear the Adidas cleats. All right, you train for the 40-yard dash. It's not the first time he ran it. Like, he had been training for at least 3-4 weeks. Like, he was getting timed. So did you just have a weirdly fast day? Or, like, I had to imagine that in the last 3 weeks, at some point, you were clocking in just about around that record. So you had to have known you were close or beating it. You might have known that you're going to smash this record. I don't know. But throw on the cleats. I went to dicksportinggoods.com. Not a sponsor of the show, but hey, I'd love for Dick's Sporting Goods to sponsor us. I could get Adidas cleats for, let me look here, $39. Now, they're not a nice pair, but it doesn't matter what kind of Adidas cleats they are. They just have to be Adidas cleats. $39. $39. But you decide to wear, I think he wore Nike. You break the record, no island. So, John Ross, I'm going to give you 5 minutes in the penalty box. Unsportsmanlike conduct, illegal equipment used on the ice. And the third one, Reuben Foster, linebacker from Alabama. I don't know okay, I think unsportsmanlike conduct, I think every week I'm going to find somebody who's acting like a toddler. Like last week it was Shaquille O'Neal and JaVale McGee, but mostly Shaquille O'Neal and his mother. This week it's Reuben Foster, linebacker from Alabama. He got in a shouting match with somebody who works at the medical staff at the Combine. And he was sent home. He was kicked out of the NFL Combine. If I'm Reuben Foster's agent, I'm looking into other clients because he's like one of the top linebackers in this draft coming out of Alabama. Nothing says, please draft me, future employer, like getting in a shouting match with somebody who works on a medical staff. How does that even happen? Like, how immature are you that you need to shout at somebody to the point where you get kicked out of the Combine? It's like going into an interview and like before you get into the office to sit down with whoever's like the CEO, like you get in a shouting match outside with the secretary who's telling you to wait for a second. Like it feels like that situation. And then the CEO comes down and is like, what are we all yelling about? And then you kick him out. Like, come on, we gotta be smarter than that. And last but not least, this unsportsmanlike conduct goes to the producers of The Bachelor. You can't tell Bachelor Nation who the next contestant is before she's voted off the island of the current show. Like, we knew who the next one was before she even was off the current show. Yeah, I bet you didn't see that one coming, did you?
And now, an unsportsmanlike conduct.
Personal foul, number 15, unsportsmanlike conduct.
That's a horrible call!
All right, that's the segment, Sweeping the Nation. It's going to be huge. I can feel it. Send me in your unsportsmanlike conducts for next week. Hopefully we can make them on the show. All right, moving, since we were talking about the NFL draft a lot with that unsportsmanlike conduct segment, I want to dig in a little deeper on who I liked and who I didn't like when I saw them during the Combine. First off, and this is a no-brainer, Myles Garrett, defensive end for Texas A&M. He looked really good, like scary good. How strong he was, and how much he was just taking over. And if you're Cleveland, you've gotten it wrong so many times with these quarterbacks. Take Myles Garrett at number 1, defensive end. He is the most pro-ready in this draft. He'll be an instant, he'll be an instant jump to your team. So, and my whole thought on this whole if you're in the top 5, I know Cleveland's looking for a quarterback, Chicago's looking for a quarterback. If you're in the top 5 and you need a quarterback, you need to be all in on this quarterback. You cannot have any doubt about him. If you do, you don't take him. Like Cleveland and Chicago have so many needs that a quarterback right now is not going to fix their problems. Like they need the best available, the most pro-ready prospect who can come in and get the job done. And in my opinion, that's Myles Garrett. I looked up his draft. I guess what they say about him, like the experts, what they're saying about him, and it's kind of funny. Like I noticed this while I was watching the draft too. Like we as the media, we have like a handful, like 12 to 15, like out of a grab bag adjectives to describe these players as they're working out. And like I started writing some of them down. I found these to be really funny. So I'm going to see what you guys think. So like when you're talking about speed, here are the two that jumped out at me most. Sneaky fast and deceptively quick. Like they're hiding it. Work ethic. When we're talking about work ethic, high motor, hard worker, a gym rat, full effort guy, gritty, durable, and this is my favorite, Friday night film guy. Guy who's going to be in the film room on Friday night. That's quite the adjective to describe somebody. And then if we're going to talk about intellect, smart, well, of course. High IQ, all right, sounds a little more smart saying that. Coach on the field, now we're talking. That's getting out there. And last but not least, he'll know the playbook. All right, I think everybody's going to know the playbook, but I'm glad to know that this guy for sure is going to know the playbook. Myles Garrett, what they said about him, first one was chiseled physique. That sounds pretty nice. Chiseled physique. They should take him out to dinner. Number 2, spring-loaded hips. All right. I have read a lot that hips are very, very important, and it's something that we're losing in this generation because kids sit at home playing on their Xboxes and PS3s, so they're getting spring-loaded thumbs, but not spring-loaded hips. Man, I sounded old right there. I sound like something. Okay. Anyways, and number 3, spins like Dwight Freeney. Uh-oh. Man. There's our first comparison. Spins like Dwight Freeney. That's pretty high praise right there for Mr. Garrett. And then some of the things they didn't like about him, the big one that jumped out at me was, and I quote, scouts are convinced he took plays off to stay healthy. That's a pretty strong accusation there. Any scouts with air quotes want to step up and say that they think that Myles Garrett was taking plays off? Anybody want to tell Myles Garrett to his face that he was taking plays off? Is it possible that maybe Myles Garrett was just getting blocked on some plays? All right, anyways. Number 2 on people I like, Solomon Thomas. He's a defensive end from Stanford. I watched him play against USC, and I saw him in the bowl game because he played in the bowl game that Christian McCaffrey sat out, which we'll get to Christian McCaffrey here in a little bit. He looked really good. I think he's another one that could come in and instantly produce. This is a strong class for defensive linemen and tight ends. A lot of tight ends, sneaky good tight ends. I don't know if they're sneaky fast, but they're sneaky good. Solomon Thomas, defensive end out of Stanford. He's a game changer. Whoever gets him is going to be very lucky. And next, Jamal Adams, safety out of LSU. He is by far the best at the safety position available. I watched him do his vertical jump. He's a freak athlete. He's crazy athletic. So he's one of those guys. You know, the NFL's become a passing league and a safety league, really, defense. Pass rush is very important, but having somebody at the back end who can, a Cam Chancellor type or somebody who's back there who's like playing almost like a free safety, just roaming around making plays. And that leads me to my 4th and final guy on who I liked coming out of the combine or who I think is going to be a good pick in the draft, and that's Jabril Peppers out of Michigan. He calls himself a money backer. He's one of those hybrid type players. He played, I don't know, there's like a crazy stat of how many positions he played throughout the year, but he calls himself a money backer. I think he's too small to play linebacker, but I definitely see him in a safety role. And I like Jabril Peppers because he's a winner. He just strikes me as that kind of guy that you want in your locker room, like you want to play for and you want to play with and next to. And he's a proven winner. I know he got a little banged up in that bowl game. He's a player though I would look strongly at. And now I'm gonna give you 3 that I think are dropping. And I just got okay. I just got word from the back that we're getting close on this story that I mentioned at the top of the hour. breaking news coming in here soon. I guess the guys in the back, they're going to call themselves the Brainy Bunch. The Brainy Bunch. Okay, the Brainy Bunch. So maybe we'll get a little update there here shortly. So dropping, number 1, Dalvin Cook. Personally, I like him, but everything I've been reading is he had not a great combine day. I thought he ran okay. He ran a decent 40-yard dash. He strikes me as, if I had to compare him to some of the NFL right now, maybe like a smaller Derrick Henry. He just seems like he seems like he'll run hard and he'll make people miss. I think he could really be a key asset to somebody out there who's looking for a nice running back who can get, I would say, mid to late first round. I see at least 3 running backs going in the first round. Like Leonard Fournette will go, water weight in all. Christian McCaffrey will go, and Dalvin Cook I think will go, and there might be another one that sneaks up in there, but definitely those 3 I think will go in the first round. Second on my list, and I look at these mock drafts, and he is still, like, some say he'll be the first quarterback taken, DeShone Kizer out of Notre Dame. Maybe he's one of those long-term projects, but I don't see it. Like, how can you not even keep your own job at Notre Dame, but a team is going to trust you to run their team? College is supposed to be easier than the pros. Like, you're supposed to take a step up when you go to the pros, and I think he's got a lot of growing to do. I mean, if you're in the top 5 and you take DeShone Kizer, you must be certain he's your guy. Like, you have to. I think he's a mid to late first round pick. I don't see him going top 10, but I'm in the minority on that one. And then number 3, Tim Williams, outside linebacker of Alabama. Saw a lot of drafts that had him in the top 10 to 15 range. I don't see it. For what I saw watching him on TV and then what I've been reading, he just strikes me as one of those pass rushers that he does nothing else. Like, he's a specialty guy. Maybe like a Shea McClellan type of player who was drafted pretty high by the Bears and now has a decent role with the Patriots. Super Bowl champion, so you got to give him that. But I don't see why you would ever take a player who's a specialty guy in the top 15. Like, pass rushing is very important in the NFL. I understand that. But Tim Williams, you got to have somebody who can stop the run as well. Somebody who you can't be spending that kind of money on somebody who's just going to play on 3rd and longs or late in drives type of situations. And okay. Oh, yep. Here we go. All right. This is NFL Combine related. You may know him. He is a quarterback out of North Carolina. His name is Mitch Trubisky. And I'm gonna send it over to the Brady Bunch and let them take it from here.
It's time for another Brainy Bunch special report. The mission of the Brainy Bunch is not to break news, but to bunch it.
Here's the story.
Yeah, this is a Brainy Bunch special report. I'm going to take over from here. Thanks to everybody working in the background that will remain nameless because they're journalists, first and foremost, before they're people. So they don't need the credit behind this investigation. But Mitchell Trubisky of North Carolina, I say Mitchell Trubisky because he has changed his name. He came out in the Combine and said that he will no longer like to be called Mitch Trubisky. He wants to be called Mitchell Trubisky. Now, I think that could have serious implications on his draft stock. I sent the Brainy Bunch out, and I wanted them to look deeper into this story. They took it in stride, and they went out and interviewed a close friend of the show. His name is Mitch from Fort Wayne. Unfortunately, Mitch was unable to join us this morning as he had a prior obligation, but he cared to comment on the situation a short while ago. And I'm going to paraphrase Mitch a little bit and also quote him. First off, I mean, how many shows out there have a correspondent by the name of Mitch to talk about Mitchell Trubisky? Like, we got to be one of the only ones. This is big stuff. So I asked Mitch/Mitchell, if he was a NFL quarterback, what would he be called? And his answer was a no-brainer. He went with Mitch. He feels like that if you're going to be a lawyer, Mitchell is the right, more formal. So I don't really, why do you have to come out in the combine and tell everybody you're changing your name? I get it, so everybody starts calling you, like, why Mitchell? Like, I liked Mitch. Mitch Trubisky sounds nice. Mitchell Trubisky, it's all right. It's not popping. Like, I'm not going to be like, that's my quarterback. Mitch Trubisky, yeah, that's my quarterback type of situation. But this is where the Brady Bunch goes above and beyond. They took this a step further, and they went and found Mitchell's mom, Mitch from Fort Wayne. They found his mom, got her take on it and what she would call her son if he made it to the NFL. And her answer was also quick, and it might shock a lot of people, but she went with Mitch Mo. Off the board there, Mitch Mo. And she says, and I quote, he is going to bring the Mo. I like that. So Mitch Mo. I'll take Mitch Mo before I'll take Mitchell. And thanks to the guys in the back, that's another Brainy Bunch special report.
The Brainy Bunch. We don't break news. We bunch it.
So nothing short of high-class journalism here on Next Point Wins. If you're just joining the show, you missed a fun first, 40 minutes now. Time's flying. We kind of went through the NFL Combine, NCAA hoops. If you missed any part of the show, go back and check out the podcast or on YouTube or SoundCloud. And last little bit of NFL, I guess, stuff I want to talk about is free agency coming up here. Teams are officially allowed to talk to free agents, but they can't sign them until Thursday at, I think, around 2. It's 2 or 4, Thursday afternoon. Big news this morning, breaking news actually, Brandon Marshall, former wide receiver for the New York Jets. He's going to sign a 2-year deal with the Giants. Now, this is interesting to me because the whole reason why Brandon wanted to be in New York was because he wanted to do kind of the football thing plus some TV stuff. I know he was on The View a lot, which that's incredible. He was on The View, and he does some other stuff. So Giants reach out and sign him for a deal. I have to imagine he took quite a bit of a discount for this one. If I'm the Giants, I have all the power in the world with him because he wants to stay in New York badly. Look at that team now for Eli. I mean, if I'm Eli, my eyes are huge. I got Brandon Marshall, Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard. That's a pretty nice three wide receivers right there. New York Giants could be dangerous next year, especially if they can get a running back. I'm still hearing they're trying to maybe sign Adrian Peterson, although it's also sounding like he might be staying in Minnesota. Either way, Giants need to get some defensive players now, but they're starting to form the offense. At least on paper, it looks good. Other notable free agents out there, Alshon Jeffrey of the Chicago Bears. He's a free agent. A lot of teams will be knocking on that door. It's going to be a pricey tag to get Alshon. Curious to see where he lands. Also, Brandon Williams, defensive tackle from the Baltimore Ravens. Good player out on the market. Pierre Garçon, wide receiver from Washington. Kind of getting up there in age, but still somebody you can count on for quality catches, possession type guy who can still make some big plays. Stephen Gilmore, cornerback from the Bills. Hearing a lot of reports saying the Bears want him. It's going to be a top price to get Stephen Gilmore. I also think that I wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots kind of look into that one. And then Dontari Poe, defensive tackle of the Chiefs. Good player. So that's 2 really good defensive tackles in this free agency class. It's not a starry free agency class, but a lot of good, solid, quality players who can make just as much of an impact as your top name guys, and they'll come at a little bit of a cheaper price. So if I'm an NFL GM, I'm pretty excited about maybe signing one of these guys and the opportunity that gives me. And then last but not least, this one was interesting to me. Quarterback Mike Glennon of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's a free agent. And earlier this week and a little bit of last week, you want to talk about a hot market name. Mike Glennon of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was a top name in the free agency class. I don't know who Mike Glennon's agent is, but the dude's a wizard. Like, well done. Like, that's incredible. I'm going to give you Mike Glennon's stats since he's been in the NFL. I will say he had a really strong 2013 season. I think it was his rookie campaign. 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 9 picks. Then in 2014, he had over 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He didn't play in 2015, and then in a very limited action last year, he had 75 yards and 1 TD, no interceptions. So Mike Glennon, he's going to get paid. Somebody is going to take a risk on Mike Glennon, and I guess if you can get it for the right tag and not having to spend, draft picks, might as well. Especially if you're Cleveland or Chicago or San Francisco, those teams up there. Hey, take a shot, I guess. You can still cash it in the draft. I think that anybody who takes Mike Glennon should also draft a quarterback 3rd, 4th, 5th round, somewhere in there, because I don't think he's somebody you can really rely on. So that's a little bit of free agency news for you. Coming up on 10:43. To thank everybody tuning in. WCCR Purdue. Hello, students. If you're just getting out of class, welcome to Next Point Wins. We're going to move on. And I saw this story yesterday, caught my eye, because I'm a big nutrition guy. I find it very interesting. I'm not saying that I have great nutrition, but I think that the science behind it is very, very interesting. So I saw this, I guess you can call it. It was an article. And the headline read, Tom Brady endorses meal subscription service. I'm a big Tom Brady guy, big Tom Brady fan. I know in this Midwest, Indiana especially area, that's not exactly welcomed, but I think Tom Brady is fantastic. Unfortunately, we weren't doing the show back when the Super Bowl was happening, but just that whole Super Bowl was, in my opinion, it was phenomenal. Just seeing people at around halftime talking about how it's over and this and that, and I just kept trying to tell people, stop, like, don't do this because he'll burn you. That's exactly what he did. Well, now he's going to burn off some calories. Tom Brady, he's endorsing a company called Purple Carrot. And I'm going to be honest, there's a lot that goes into this Purple Carrot service, and we're going to dig deep here because this is just too much. It's basically one of those services where it's boxed meals that will be delivered to your home. So it's pre-cooked kind of stuff weekly. Let's see. Looking at some of the stats of their company, 75% of the people who subscribe are female. That makes sense because once I start telling you what kind of meals these are, it's crazy. Okay, so here's Tom Brady's. This is what Tom Brady eats, and he's on record on this. He eats no dairy, no eggs, no seafood, no meat, and no processed foods. So, what does he eat? Dirt? What else? Because, no wonder why 75% of the people who subscribe are female. Men like steak. Men like chicken, beef. You can't take meat out of it. This is really good. I guess the motto the company is going to start adopting is, and I quote, eat like a goat. I find this funny for two reasons. One, I'm not oblivious. I understand that what they're meaning is GOAT as in greatest of all time. So eat like Tom Brady, eat like the greatest of all time. Okay, that's clever. But where they're missing is not everybody watches football, and most importantly, not everybody knows what GOAT means. And I don't know if you guys know much about goats. I sure didn't, but I know some of the stereotypes. So I did some research last night, had some of my brainy bunch of guys help me out. Goats eat everything. You put something in front of a goat, they're eating it. They eat trash. They eat out of dumpsters. They're known for eating everything. This diet plan is the complete opposite. You're eating nothing. So if you don't know what GOAT means, you could be subscribing to this thinking that you're going to get just every food you can think of, and you're getting close to nothing. I'll give an example of one of the sample meals that will be included in Tom Brady's package to his home. And it is as I read it, and I'm going to mess up about half of these words because I've never heard them in my life. Sample meals include a ramen bowl with charred broccolini and gingered amaranth and crispy turnip cakes. Turnip cakes? That's not a cake. With quinoa, tabbouleh, and za'atar yogurt. My goodness gracious. Are you serious? What's za'atar yogurt? It's Z-A, Atar. I wish I didn't just spell that for you guys because somebody at home knows what that is and is like, this dude, he just pronounced it so, like, maybe I should know what that is, but I don't. Turnip cakes, I can't get over turnip cakes. I get in arguments with my roommate like every day on what's a dessert and what's not. If I went to him and said, is turnip cakes a dessert? He would probably, I mean, I can't imagine. He'd probably explode. That's horrible. Now, here's one thing that's very interesting that I agree with Touchdown Tommy on. I found out that him and we have the same coffee drink order. So I guess if you want to drink like a champion, drink like me and Touchdown Tommy. He drinks double shot of espresso, just like me, on ice with just a splash of coconut milk. Friend of the show, Joe from Austin, he kind of turned me on to this concoction, I guess you could call it. It tastes like motor oil, not going to lie to you, which it's very bitter. It's a very bitter drink, but once you get used to it, it's really good. And it's super healthy for you. No sugars, none of that. So I'm going to be honest with you guys. Some people are going to sign up for this Purple Carrot endorsement thing. Let's be honest. We're not Tom Brady, and we don't have to be Tom Brady. Don't get me wrong. It'd be really cool to try this, but realistically, this is very few people will be able to realistically, consistently do this diet. If you're looking to try a diet, just stuff that I've read and experienced, go for the greens. Kale, spinach, just go for green beans, vegetables. Get your veggies. Get your greens in because greens are very high in iron, and that helps combat like a lot of cancer and other really, really bad diseases. And there's a lot of studies out there that say greens are most important. So get as many greens as you possibly can. Cut back on your breads. That's easy. Breads are high. Cut back on your cheeses, your dairy. You can still have dairy. Just because Tom doesn't have dairy doesn't mean you can't. But cut back on it. Exercise a lot. Exercising is very important. Try to limit your sweets and cheat days. Everybody has them. I assume even Tom has them. You know, I pictured Tom Brady like sitting in the kitchen eating his Zagat yogurt and his turnip cakes and then looking over and seeing, like, I imagine like Giselle like at the table with like a Big Mac and a nice chocolate shake. I pictured Giselle. Well, I picture a lot about Giselle, but like the supermodel eating like horrible, and Tom Brady's over here eating his turnip cakes. I would, that'd be an interesting question. Who eats more healthy, do you think, Tom Brady or Giselle? I have to imagine it's Tom Brady. I would say Tom Brady, but I guess I don't know for sure. Oh man, I guess what I'm trying to say here is make whatever you do, make it simple. Try not to cheat on it and be patient because it takes a while. But you don't have to diet like Tom Brady. If that's something you want to try, go for it. From my opinion, it's going to be hard. This day in sports history, 1930, Babe Ruth signs 2-year contract for $160,000. And Yankees GM at the time, Ed Barrow, he predicted, and I quote, "No one will ever be paid more than Babe Ruth." I'm not sure anybody should ever get paid more than Babe Ruth, but $160,000, that's like a week for a lot of these guys nowadays. Man, that's like a day for Mike Trout and Bryce Harper and Justin Verlander. Also, in 1971, Joe Frazier beats Muhammad Ali in 15 rounds in Madison Square Garden to retain heavyweight title. Everybody watched it. There was no pay-per-view. I think pay-per-view's hurting the boxing sport. You don't get the casual fan because they're not willing to pay $100 to watch a fight. I understand that you make a lot of money in the boxing world through pay-per-view, but as far as popularity for your sport, I don't think it's helping. And also, breaking news this morning, and sad to say that Joseph W. Rogers, one of the founders of Waffle House, he's passed away at 97. So go out there and eat a waffle for Joseph today, Mr. Rogers. Sad news there. Last week we talked about movies, and all right, I'm going to come out and say it right now. I am sorry. All right, I apologize. After hearing it from about 30 people, like I said on air, I was like, I'm going to miss a big one, and people are going to yell at me. I got yelled at. The Blind Side. Yes, The Blind Side is a great movie, and I apologize for missing it. Sandra Bullock is phenomenal. Really spectacular in that movie. That's a great movie, and I apologize I missed it. 2 other ones that were brought to my attention that are good movies. Little Giants. I do like The Little Giants. Annexation of Puerto Rico. Icebox, yeah, it's a good movie. And Brian's Song, a sad movie, but a very good sports movie. If you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend it. I also heard this morning that Last Chance U is coming back for season 2. Now, I don't know how many of you guys know about Last Chance U. It's a documentary, a documentary of sorts on Netflix. And if you haven't seen season 1, it's still on Netflix. You got to go see it. It's must-see TV. And it's basically, I'll kind of give you the plot. I'm not going to spoil anything for you. Basically, it's about a junior college in Mississippi. And the show's called Last Chance U because it's the last chance for a lot of these college players to make it back to a big Division I college and to the pros eventually. Basically, it's a place where athletes go when they get kicked out of they don't graduate high school or they get kicked out of their college or become academically ineligible. They go to these junior colleges for a year, get their grades up, play some ball, and then go back to one of these big schools on scholarship before they go pro. I have to warn you up front, there's a lot of language. It's the most real show about football I've seen in a long time. So there's a bunch of language. The head coach, he's very mouthy, so I wouldn't recommend it for your kids. And they don't bleep anything out either, so you get the full dose. So if you are immediately taken back by strong language, maybe this isn't the show for you, but anybody who's a big football fan, any football coaches out there, you gotta see Last Chance U. It's like in this small town, and what's funny about this show is it's like a small town, and for these people, all they got is this football team. Like the population of this county, I guess you would say, in Mississippi, all they got is the football team. One of them they interviewed, and they talked about going down to the restaurant, the only restaurant in town, and then they show it. They like turn and see the restaurant, and everybody sees it. It's a Subway. Like their restaurant is Subway. That's how small this town is. Oh man, there's a academic advisor on the show. I think she steals the show personally. She's great with these students. I mean, like a lot of these kids, they never like actually had to work in the classroom in their lives. Like they'll be the first ones to tell you. Like the first day of school, she walked up and down the hallways and she was like looking at her football players and like, do you guys got like notebook, pencil? Like, where's your guys' stuff? And they're all like looking at her like she's crazy. Like they were just about to go and sit there like they've done all their life. Just go sit so they don't get counted tardy. And they just want to play football. And they're a good team too. So it's about, I think it's 4 or 5 episodes. It's about as long as a movie would be. Maybe a little longer than a movie. If you get the chance, you really should see it. The coach is really, really something. And the team is good, and the ending will have you surprised, but I will not spoil anything for those who haven't seen it. But yeah, season 2 is coming out. I know a couple of the players from season 1, like the quarterback, he played last year. Like they filmed it in, I guess you would say 2015. So he then transferred from the school. So like this past college football season, I recognized some names as I was watching games. The quarterback of the show became the quarterback at Auburn. Franklin. I don't know if you guys know that name, but he kind of split time as starting quarterback at Auburn. So like these guys do make it from this college, but they have to be eligible, which is where the academic advisor comes in, and they have to play good football, which is where the coach comes in. Here's your spring training report for this week. Kind of disheartening news. Yasiel Puig of the Dodgers, he had his home broken into. There's reports of over $170,000 of property were stolen from his home. Mostly jewelry, they're saying. Sad news there. Also, what to watch tonight? We have one more team punching that ticket to the tournament, 7:30 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. It's Lehigh versus Bucknell for the Patriot League Championship. Where is Lehigh from? Where's Bucknell from? Name the state. I have no idea. Let's see. I'm going to take Lehigh in a close one. I'm going to go Lehigh 54, Bucknell 50. I do know Lehigh has one player by the name of Tim Kempton. He's a center for Lehigh. He's a monster. He's averaging a double-double, 20 points, 10 rebounds on the year. Very impressive. I only know of a couple more players who can say they've done that. So I think he'll have a big night. I think I picked a low score because I think these two teams are going to turn back the clock a little bit. They both have big inside presences, and I'm not quite sure what they can shoot from three, but it might be one of those grind them out type of games. Also, we have conference tournament games. We're kind of getting to the point now in the conference championship week where the Cinderella stories, the little boys, the step brothers and sisters are stepping out of the spotlight, and the big boys are coming to play. As big conferences are now pretty much in full swing around the nation. We have Big Ten action, ACC, Big 12, the Big East. They're all getting it going, turning it up. So conference tournament games you can watch from, well, I'm sure ACC tournament's starting right now. Probably from 1 o'clock on, I think you could probably watch basketball, which is it's a beautiful, beautiful sight. Also, Pistons versus the Pacers, 8 p.m. ESPN, and then you have Celtics Warriors, 10:30 ESPN. Little double header on ESPN tonight for NBA hoops. Didn't get into a lot of NBA talk today. We talked about Russell Westbrook's career night and Dirk Nowitzki getting that 30,000th point. Two cool stories. So I'll try to get some more NBA action in. And then what I'm going to watch, a lot of hoops. And then once it hits 10 o'clock, I am done with sports for the night because it's Wednesday night, 10 p.m. That means Chicago PD's on. I'm a huge Chicago PD fan. I'm into Chicago PD and also Chicago Fire. But if you're not familiar, there's like Chicago Justice, Chicago Med, Chicago PD, and Chicago Fire. They're all separate shows, but they also kind of intermix with each other, and you see different members of different teams of the Chicago Force coming together for the greater good. So I'll be watching that. You best be certain. All right, well, we're getting close here to the end of time. So next week, I got to let you guys know we're going to be podcast only. No live radio at 10 a.m. for you WCCR pretty listeners. If you want to listen to the show, you got to go to SoundCloud or YouTube. Follow my page on SoundCloud. Subscribe on YouTube. I'll be posting the podcast. I'm going to be doing it from home as it's our spring break. So also, if you missed any portion of today's show, go to YouTube or SoundCloud to catch what you missed. Follow, subscribe. Also, follow me on Twitter. That way you guys get the updates every week when the poll question comes out. So you guys can get your votes in and weigh in on the poll question. Final look at the poll. It's going to end up being championship in any sport. Runs away with it. Island came in second. So, John Ross, you should have put on those $39 Adidas cleats. You should have gotten your Island. It would have been yours. You would have had an Island. All right. I challenge you all to be for the rest of the day, be a gritty player. Let's go gritty today. All right. Let's get the job done. Because gritty players, they win championships. It's championship week. Every day is a Super Bowl, especially today. It's the bottom of the ninth. Game is tied and the bases are loaded. A walk is going to be as good as a hit because next point wins.